Hello, everybody. We are in room 3 for session 2 with Tammie Foley. We're doing the effects of CS on low-income and minority students. We'll get started in just a minute or two here. There is going to be some Q&A here this afternoon, so feel free to put that in the chat or the Q&A option down at the bottom. We're super excited to have you here today. I hope session 1 was informative. I hope you had a chance to stretch your legs here. And then we'll go ahead and get started in just a couple minutes. All right, it looks like our participants have kind of leveled off here. Let's go ahead, Tammie, and you can share your screen, and then we'll give you just a minute to kind of get comfortable and get started. This is room 3, session 2, the effects of CS on low-income and minority students. And we're very excited to have you all.
Well, first of all, thank you very much and welcome to this session. I am insanely honored and terrified to be here. It's ironic. I actually teach speech class as well, and we talk about nerves and breathing and calming. But preparing for this really made me realize how jaded I've become on the topic. But I think it's good for every teacher to be humbled every once in a while, so they remember they aren't the be-all, know-all on any topic, and I'm certainly not on this topic either. I just have my experiences, and I wanted to share them. Before we get started, I have 2 confessions. One, my school never went virtual, so this is like the 5th time I've used Zoom, so please give me some grace. And the second confession is yesterday I had dental surgery. So I'm not too numb, but hopefully I'm speaking clearly and you can understand me. If not, just throw it in the chat and I will try to do better. So let's dig in here. Today we're going to be talking about rural and low income access to technology, specifically delivering that curriculum to isolated and underprivileged Native American communities. That's where I teach. Let's get into that real quick. So who am I? My name is Tammie Foley. There's my email address. Reach out anytime. I don't do social media. I'm 41. I don't understand Snapchat. So I'm not there yet. I was born and raised in Rapid City. Some would consider that to be rural. There's about 90,000 people. To me, it was the big town. I do have a BA in drama, English literature, and education. But even from a young age, I was always techie. I loved messing with stuff, the newest, latest, greatest. I just loved technology. Of course, back in the 80s, computer science was brand new and it just wasn't a thing for girls to do. So was I born today, my life would have been a different trajectory. I do have a master's in curriculum with an emphasis in classroom technology. After a few years, it became very clear that this was a passion I had to pursue to bring computer science to this district, which didn't have a single computer science course, which we're going to find looking at statistics is very true for a lot of schools. So currently I am at White River High School, which is 20 miles from the Sikangu Lakota Oyat tribe, otherwise known as the Burnt Thigh Nation. On the map, you'll find it as the Rosebud Indian Reservation. I will probably refer to it that way. It is a Title I school. 91% of our students are minority enrollments, but not necessarily in the Rosebud Sioux tribe, which we will also discuss in just a little bit. So today I'm going to focus on the difficulties of delivering computer science to those rural communities with really high densities of Native American populations. And this is a really nuanced topic, and I'm not an expert. I am an outsider. Sometimes it's good to have an outsider's perspective, but I am not part of the Native community. I never will be. I am accepted to a degree. I've been welcomed. I have been taught, but that is not my history. I was not born into that. So what I know is academic and through personal experience. So wonderful. Where was I? So yeah, I am just one teacher with observations about one group of kids in one town. But what I've learned and the background I've done, I think is applicable to all sorts of situations. So I am going to stop at a few points. We know what it's like to ask a room full of people a question and just nothing. We hate it when our students do that. So please throw in some questions. I would appreciate it. So there are some problems that we face no matter who we are, everywhere. Educational requirements. Only 5 states in the United States, when I looked this up, require computer science to graduate. 27 states require schools to offer computer science, which is up from only 4 states in 2017. But 51% of those schools only offer one class, just one. And that is foundations. Okay. And then access. According to Pew Research, 28% of Americans rely only on cell phones to get internet. And then, of course, staffing. 53% of public schools are currently understaffed. Shocker. But this is what's interesting. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics estimated that there are 37,600 computer science teachers that are certified out of 3,197,000. I'm not a math guy, but I think if I'm right, that is only 0.01% of K-12 teachers that can teach computer science. So while these aren't easy solutions to fix, they're pretty obvious how to do it. So we have to, first of all, lobby to make computer science a requirement. We have to make sure everyone has access to broadband. And we have to give incentives to both new students and current teachers to become certified. I think teachers know a lot more than they think they know. Every teacher teaches computer science, every one of us. So just go taking that praxis test and getting it put on your certificate. That's really all it takes. But however, in rural communities, these problems are really compounded. And those general solutions, it's not a matter of money, or they just aren't viable. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about, is the difficulty of bringing computer science to these communities, and specifically to Native communities. And you'll see why that's a crisis in just a second. Okay, so this slide is rather shocking to me. A study performed by Code.org states that Native Americans and Native Alaskan kids make up 1% of public high school education. 1% of kids in school in America is 1%. 1% of those kids take a single computer science course. So 1% of all Native kids in the United States touches computer science. And so while rural Native communities face the problems on the previous slide, they also have other more unique problems to conquer. And until those are addressed, we're never going to see more than 1% of 1% in high schools. All right, so we can't go on without talking about Native American culture, because at the heart, that is why there is the disconnect. So every place in the world has a different culture that goes with it. Like the vibe in Manhattan, totally different from Long Beach. Like the Midwest, we have hot dishes. The East Coast has charcuterie boards, pop, soda, Coke, water fountain, bubblers. It's all different. We're all American, but we all have different values, different ways to do things, different ways to think about things, and how to problem solve, which is both awesome but difficult. Indigenous people fall under the umbrella of Native American, but there are 574 different tribes recognized by the United States government. And every one of them, almost 600 tribes, has a different culture. They can be similar in some ways, but very different in others. For example, the Lakota and the Arapaho are known for their beadwork. The Cherokee, the Iroquois, and the Shoshone are known for pottery, while the Cheyenne, they're known for both. And that doesn't take into account that the Lakota Unchi, who's grandmother, and it doesn't have to be your grandmother, any elder woman is really your Unchi, and you can call her that, and she will take that role. They may hate beadwork, but boy, oh boy, they can make the best star quilt in the state. So these different cultures are not limited to tribes. Okay, even in the Rosebud Sioux tribe, we have 19 communities or towns. Each one has a little bit of variation, and each one is going to approach education differently. So let me be frank. Thinking a couple weeks of high school American Indian Studies or a half credit in college is going to make anyone an expert on this culture is like saying because you had a Lego set, you're capable of building a house. Okay, I know coming into this school, it was a huge culture shock. I didn't even know why my head was spinning for the first year. So let me give you an example. This is a great example, I think. There was this one boy, my first year, refused to look me in the eye. Absolutely refused. Didn't matter what I said, how I tried to connect with him, what I tried to find in common. I talked Minecraft, I talked to games, anything I saw he had an interest in, I tried to approach him. He wouldn't look me in the eye. And the more I knew that, the more it aggravated me and the more it got under my skin. It didn't matter. And so it became really irritating. And finally I walked to my principal, who is Oglala, which about 300 miles away, her tribe. I was frustrated. I was in a lather. And I'm like, I want this boy removed. He is so disrespectful. I cannot work with him. She looked me right in the eye. And Native people are generally very direct. And she said, did you know in his tribe, looking people in positions of authority, looking them in the eye is considered hugely disrespectful. That's all she said. And she waited for me to leave. I just left her office. There was no arguing that. But that's it. That's all she said. And the thing is, a different kid from 10 miles up the road, if he did that, it'd be like giving me the finger. It would. So that is exactly why all attempts to make this Native American inclusive curriculum, it's going to fail. It's going to fail in every subject because there is no homogeneous Native American culture. It doesn't exist. It's not going to meet the needs of nearly 600 tribes. So take it from my experience. You either learn fast or you're a 1E. You learn fast. And if you try to superimpose your culture over that of your students, you're going to be a one-year teacher here. And you might not even know why that happened. The flip side of that coin, if you're authentic, if you're interested in their culture and learning, these communities will embrace you. They will teach you. They want to teach you. If you act like you are going to save the poor Native students from ignorance and poverty and force compliance with these other standards that don't reflect their value system, you're going to get iced out. You are going to become an island. Just recently, we had another snowstorm. We've had like 12 snow days. It has been brutal up here this year. I sliced my finger open. I passed out. I can't do blood. I cannot do blood. Had it been worse, I would have needed stitches. It was a whiteout. The nearest hospital is 40 miles. But I know I could have called any person in this community, whiteout or not, 4-foot drifts or not, they would have been there in minutes helping me. So the reliance on your neighbor is key to literal survival, literal. And sometimes that's true of any rural community, not just Native communities. You're on your own out here. This is an island on a prairie. All right, next slide. So what do you do about it? What do you do about it? We all know students universally, they need different hooks to pull them in. But with Native communities, you need to get the parents and communities pulled in too. In a moment, we'll discuss why buy-in towards education in computer science is difficult to bridge. But I urge you, do not forget that these students, these extended families, these communities, they will hold more power over your students than you ever will. Doesn't matter what your relationship is, they will look to their elders. Okay, so pulling them in, getting their support, you won't go anywhere without that. Oh, I forgot to click. Sorry, I did animations. All right, so overcoming history, Native Americans in education. So historically speaking, Native Americans don't fare so well when rich white folk appear and make promises. We all know that. We know the general American history. So buy-in is defined as an acceptance of and willingness to actively support and participate in something, and anyone wants to achieve any sense of buy-in, that support has to be earned. You're not going to walk in and get it. Okay, first though, it's important to know why there is such a deep mistrust some Native Americans feel towards the education system. It is futile to think about addressing any education with Native American students and families without looking at these historical ties. We can't do it. So click. So in 1819, the US government passed the Indian Civilization Act. That alone is a red flag to me. So between 1869 and 1960, hundreds of thousands of Native American students were removed from their homes and families. Okay, there were 350 government-funded, church-run Indian boarding schools. Okay. Not every boarding school was a nightmare. Some parents sent their children voluntarily. It was better than starving. And just like today, some families believed that a white Western European education was the path to success for children. And for some students, it's true. My administrator, I talked about her, Perry Strain, who, she was sent to a boarding school. Her parents thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. It put her on a path to get her PhD. Okay, but as I hope to impress upon you so far, some is not all. Some children were literally dragged off while their mothers were held at gunpoint, while those mothers were pinned down so priests and none could force custody over these kids. Some parents were declared insane legally, or with no actual legal process, so the state could take custody of those children. They were threatened with jail or worse, execution, if they didn't give up their kids. Whoops, I went too far. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let me give you a quote, and this is from the US government. Quote, an Indian boarding school policy was expressly intended to implement cultural genocide through the removal and reprogramming of American Indian children, and to accomplish the systematic destruction of Native culture and communities. Okay. These children sent to more brutal institution were beaten for speaking their language. They were banned from any cultural practices, stripped of clothing, personal belongings, behavior, hair. They were not even allowed to get mail from home. Okay. So by 1926, 83% of Indian school-age children were attending boarding school. 83%. And the elders today, 1926, these people are still alive. They can remember their own firsthand personal experiences in Indian boarding schools. And they have passed that trauma and those stories on to their grandchildren. It is a living memory. Here's another quote from the General Philip Sheridan. Okay, General-in-Chief, big dog of the US Army. He said, the only good Indian is a dead one. And that high sanction of his destruction, the Native American, has been an enormous factor in promoting Indian massacres. In a sense, I agree with this sentiment, but only in this, that all the Indian there is in the race should be dead. Kill the Indian in him, save the man. I have a colleague here. He's a history teacher in my school, Mr. Morrison. He's young. He's in his second year of teaching. But he told me his grandfather was forced into a boarding school like I have just described. To this day, has never said one word about his experience. which to me is very reminiscent of, say, those soldiers in Vietnam or World War II, will not talk about it, that trauma is so ingrained. 40,000. It's a big number. Preston S. McBride, he's an Indian boarding school historian, and he is Comanche. In his research, he found that more than 1,000 student deaths at only 4 former boarding schools were found. The number of dead children historically could be as high as 40,000. Quote, basically every school had a cemetery at every single boarding school. Those children were never returned home, were never given a burial in accordance to the traditions of their tribes. Many parents were told that their children had run away. Those parents never knew what happened. There are still Indian boarding schools right now, today. And we've known about these problems a long, long time. This is not some dredged up singular experience that's been overinflated to create this outrage. It's not. So 1969, the US Senate did a report called The Indian Education, a National Tragedy. And it highlighted some of the disastrous effects that forced assimilation placed on education of American Native children. Okay, and this is also including public education at this point. I would like to read you just a few of the findings that this report made. And this is not from a legislative body that's known for being straightforward or admitting failure. So quote, the classroom and the schools have become a kind of battleground where the Indian child attempts to protect his integrity and identity as an individual by defeating the purposes of school, period. Schools often fail to understand or adapt to, and in fact, often denigrate cultural differences. Schools blame their own failures on the Indian student and reinforce that defensiveness. Schools often fail to recognize the importance and validity of the Indian community. The community and child retaliate by treating the school as an alien institution. Schools also have a dismal record of absenteeism, dropouts, negative self-image, low achievement, and ultimately academic failure for many Indian children. All this contributes to a perpetuation of the cycle of poverty, which undermines the success of all other federal programs. This was the United States government saying this. Okay, 1969, we landed on the moon. That's when this report came out. It breaks my heart. It burns my biscuits that these exact statements just as valid today. Okay, is it any wonder that our students at best and their families are incredibly at best cautious about supporting public education? 65% of Native American students graduate from high school. 65%. 9.3% get a college degree. That speaks for itself. How can I go further than that? Okay, this is today, right now. This article came out last week. On February 20th, a first grade boy of the Waccamaw Siouan tribe was told he would be expelled from a state-funded charter school, basically a boarding school, the classical charter school of Leland in Leland, North Carolina, if he didn't cut his braid. He had already been in school for 18 months and had his braid. Okay, he put his braid in a bun daily to comply with dress code, but the school officials called it a fad. His mother explained it. Logan's hair is an extension of who he is. Without his hair, he will lose a part of himself and a critical aspect of his heritage. Native Americans have been wearing their hair long since time immemorial. The Waccamaw Siouan tribe has continued to steward this land long before white people, and all the surrounding land of the Cape Fear region for thousands of years. The school's dismissal of Logan's identity and our tribal custom, it's needless, it's unfair, and it's deeply offensive to who we are and who our tribe has always been. Kill the Indian, save the child. It's still there. So what do we do? What can we do? This is history. This is fact. What do we do about it in the past? So most importantly, we need to acknowledge that this happened. Like, it happened. It's real. It's reality. And it's a real hurdle that not just our students face, but their families and communities deal with. I have seen so many responses from people who are supposed to be professionals and supposed to be acting in the best interest of children claim that this is just an issue drummed up for controversy. It's not sincere. Generations survive this attitude. It's going to take generations to heal. So let me go back to Mr. Morrison, the young teacher I teach with. Despite the trauma his grandfather survived, that man made sure his children and his grandchildren got an education, to graduate, to go on, get a college education. Mr. Morrison, the grandfather, supports and advocates voraciously for education. His grandmother works for the district. His other grandson works for the district. His brother. It has taken 3 generations to move forward. You're not going to fix this in an open house. You're not going to fix this in a conference in 1 year, in 5 years. It's going to take a single step. When one student is successful K-12, and when they go on to have kids, they will support their kids a little bit more. And then the next generation and the next generation. The solution is absolutely generational. So don't think it's something that you're failing to do if you haven't reached out and put yourself out there and worked your heart out and you're still not getting buy-in. That's not your failure, but you are taking a step, and it is a hard step. So this has been some pretty heavy stuff. It really has. So before we get into crunching the numbers about actual access, let me take some time. Let's answer a question or two. If someone could facilitate that, I'm not sure how to access that.
No questions at the moment, but we'll give everybody just a minute here. Take a breather, and we'll see if we get any questions.
Right. It's a lot to process. It's a lot to process. It really is.
Done a wonderful
Sorry.
job.
What is computer science without Red Bull and licorice? Like that's
a programmer at heart.
Right. Yeah, that's me right there. All right. So access. Access is a problem that is felt in America, everywhere. But being so isolated in a rural community, or even a small town, access becomes so much harder. For example, White River, where I teach, 400 kids, the nearest Walmart, 140 miles away. Imagine having to drive 2 hours to go get a light bulb. Yeah, you become very resourceful. Very resourceful. So just over 50% of Native Americans on tribal land have access to the internet. Half. Okay. Compare that to 1.2% of Americans in cities lack broadband. That's insane. 50%. So we didn't go totally virtual, but the kids were 40 miles out. We open a Google Classroom. They can, roads are bad. They're dirt roads. They're not even dirt roads. They're mud roads. If they can't get in, they want to hop online, but they can't hop online. They are missing their educational opportunity. So what do they do? What do they do to get online? So there's another problem to that. Not just getting online, but how to afford to get online. So the average nationwide American Native household income is $33,627 in the 2010 census. In 2020, they didn't bother finding that number, the US government. They cut it out of their census, okay? And that's through 33,000 for the household. not one person, the household. However, 20% of Native Americans on reservations make less than $5,000 a year. And let me tell you, there is a stereotype that they're getting all this stuff from the tribe. No. And some tribes are very supportive, and most, no. Okay. So the average PC costs $630 in America. Average laptop, $495. Average smartphone, $363. And the average cost of a tablet is $178. And you have $5,000. What are you spending your money on? Food and electric or a PC? So computers in the home, we just talked about that. Nearly 70% of all Native homes on the reservation have no computer in the home. Okay, well, it's clear that this problem's across the board. Let me do this. Quote, the spread of computers and the internet will put jobs into two categories: people who tell computers what to do and people who are told by computers what to do. That's by Mark Anderson. I don't know how many people on here are old enough to remember Netscape. But it's been a little while. But here's a graph. So 20% of white people do not have a computer in the home. 36% Latino and Black. 70% of Native students don't have a computer in the home. Even if they want to get online, how they do it. So there are three general options for the internet, broadband, fiber optic. So the average cost is $64 a month, and it costs $60,000 to $80,000 per route mile to lay fiber optic cable. And remember that figure. It'll be up, but remember that figure. Unlimited cellular data. Average cost $70 a month. 86% of Native Americans have these cell phones with unlimited data. Good, great, awesome. They do have access, but we all know there are limits to using your cell phone. You can't really do a Google Sheet or a PowerPoint on your cell phone. Okay, and then there is satellite data. Okay, it can be up to $110 a month. You get unlimited range, but it's capped. Usually it's capped at about 100 gigabytes for the month. If you go over that, it's dropped down to 1 gigabyte. Zoom takes 2.4 gigabytes an hour. So if you're capped at 100 and you have 3 kids at home, how fast are you going to get to that 100 cap and then not be able to participate? Okay, here's another graph. In square miles, just to give you an idea, New York City has 302 square miles. LA has 502. The Lakota Rosebud Reservation, I'm sorry, it's just behind me. It's just down the road. 3,281 square miles. And it's $80,000 to put in fiber optic cable for 1 mile. Look at that figure. Now, let me be fair. I don't want to misrepresent anything. The vast majority of Native Americans live in communities. Okay. So they're not going over every mile of this 3,281, but a lot of them, they're ranchers. They do live 40 miles in the middle of nowhere. What are they going to do? What do they do? So some tribes do subsidize these costs. A lot don't. And up to 2017, the FCC would give people a $25 stipend to help pay for this. That was abolished in 2017. $5,000 a year, $65 a month for a cell phone. And you pick lights on and off or a cell phone. What would you choose? Heat or a cell phone? Food or a cell phone? Okay, so next topic, career pathways. We can't talk about this. So to me, this is actually the hardest part, which if you think about everything we've talked about, and it gets harder from here. So culture can be learned through authentic caring. There's no one better than a teenager who can point out if an adult like doesn't authentically care. I learned that the hard way. So it takes investment of time. It's achievable. You can do it. It may take years. You can do it. Computers, broadbands, these can be bought or built with enough resources. It takes almost insurmountable resources, but it's there. Okay. But here's the brick wall. This graph wouldn't let me do decimals. The figure for Native Americans is actually 0.5. Of all the demographics in computer science today, 0.5 are Native American. That's crazy. That's almost nothing. That's, for all intents and purposes, that's zero. Okay, I'll say it again. There are different types of attitudes in the Native American community, but generally, students and family, and this isn't true of Native American, this is all rural students. Okay, they feel a very close connection to where they were born. Okay, it's not a matter of just get out, go, leave. I had a student this year, she got into Yale, she got into Berkeley, she got into Harvard. She is going to the local school 100 miles away so she can stay close. She has a twin brother with some learning issues. She takes care of him. She gave up Harvard to take care of her family. Like, what a kid, what a kid. And she's one of the best computer science kids I've ever had. I love her. I love her. So even the parents that declare you're going to college, non-negotiable, I'll kick you in the butt all the way up there, they will choose majors that bring them home and that will somehow help them to contribute to the community. Okay, they're not leaving their community behind, and trying to force them to is going to shut them down. Absolutely. So I struggled long and hard with sharing this next bit of information. At best, it's offensive. It's ignorant. But you have to know, there is this term among natives that describes people that leave the reservation: an apple, red on the outside, white on the inside. If you leave, you are rejecting your history, your people. Like they think they are too good to stay on the reservation. And I have seen these kids emotionally abused, physically abused. They are kicked out without a single resource, clothes on their back, for even thinking of leaving. This is not universal. Many, many, many families support their kids to follow their dreams, but that does happen. It's one more challenge a student has to face. It's just one more. It's just all stacking up a little bit more than your average student. Okay, so realistic opportunities. If these kids aren't going to leave, we don't even have a stoplight in my town. We don't have a stoplight. We have one cop in town, really, one sheriff. So what good is computer science in a community like this? They want to come back. They want to help their community. What good's computer science? So Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google, they have programs that train their employees to teach computer lessons in schools. Awesome. For some students, amazing opportunity, foot in the door in a very competitive industry. But for the average student, that doesn't amount to anything. I mean, think of it this way. Who would pick a beat up old 4-wheel drive truck, rusted out, over a shiny new Corvette? Who would pick that? I'll tell you, anyone who has to drive on gravel roads and 3 feet of snow. It goes back to that resourcefulness, that practicality that I think most American children just don't have. It's a survival skill out here. And one of the reasons I've stayed is I enjoy that to a degree. I enjoy relying on myself. I feel very capable. You know, it's made me a stronger woman for it. So I lost my place. So it's really hard to dream big. It's hard to dream of Harvard when your family doesn't get their food stamps for the next 5 days. There's no food in the house. How are you supposed to go to Harvard when they're starving rather than taking the first minimum wage job you can just to help your 5 siblings and your mom? How do you dream big? Let me tell you. there is hope on this next slide. So you're not going to be able to solve this problem, but the community, you can't solve the problem, not alone, but students, parents, families, teachers, schools, tribes, they are stepping up to help solve that problem. So if you can't bring Muhammad to the mountain, let's bring it to him. Okay. There are 35 tribal colleges and universities with 75 satellite campuses. All these little red dots are colleges. Now, you don't have to be Native American to go to these colleges. There is one 20 miles up the road, and 23 of these offer a Bachelor of Science in Computer Technology, Computer Science and Technology. That's cool. That is a tribal solution to a cultural problem. I know at least 6 teachers in this school that are getting their administrative degree right now, their master's degree. So it's not just BS degrees, Bachelor of Science degrees. It's master's degree. They have a PhD program that my principal is going through right now. This is quality education at a fraction of the price. Right now, ever since COVID, free for every student. They offer a laptop to every student. They offer $1,000 stipend for internet to every student, free. And back when it wasn't free, I think a credit hour was like $60. Yeah, compared to the $400 credit hour I paid at my state school. Yeah, so these colleges, they're set in extremely rural locations, as you can see. I focus more on the South and Midwest, Southwest, but they're all over. I think I went over all this. Total programs, 358 different programs. And these are everything from certificates, associate's degrees, bachelor degrees, master's degrees. Oh, it's right here. 181 associate's programs, 40 bachelor degrees, 5 master's degrees program. Okay. Giving these students an option that support their culture and beliefs, such as feeling obligated to keep close to their family. Huge step in the right direction. And again, this isn't just Native students. I have rural students as well, just farmers, ranchers. Frankly, white people. We got white people here. I'm if you can't tell. That opportunity is available to them. It's one thing about the native culture. They don't want to exclude anybody. They will welcome anyone who is open to it. Excellent. So by showing our high school students that we can help them address the problems I have listed, we're going to get them drawn in. We're going to show them that they got a shot. And once computer science is recognized as a viable option, we're going to start closing that 0.5 gap of Native people in the industry. Okay, there are 400,000 unfilled computer science jobs today, and we can bridge that gap. I know we can. Okay, so really, what can we do? What can you do? Oh, nope, sorry, too fast. So I have no answers. All of that to find out. I have no answers. I'm not an expert on this. I can't tell you what will work in your school, in your area, with your students, in your community, because they have a different culture. If you've taken away one thing, learn that they have a different culture. There is no one homogeneous Native American culture. Okay. So at what point of what's the point of this? Why am I talking to you? If your solutions are totally different, may or may not work, why am I talking to you? So what I can do is tell you what I've done, and with some success, I'll pat myself on the back. But let me emphasize, I failed a lot. I failed a lot. But isn't that what we teach our students to do? To learn and fail more and learn more. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to tell you some of the things I have done that some people wouldn't consider reaching for the stars. And a lot of teachers get hung up on that. They want their student to go be the CEO of Blue Origin. I would love it if my students became a network engineer. That is the star for some students, is that baby step. And their kid will take one more step and one more step. Again, it is generational. So I didn't wait until I was teaching computer science to actually pursue the professional development. I applied to every teacher training I could find. I've gone to code.org trainings put on by the NSA and cybersecurity. I spent a week with the National Science Foundation, the CES program, of course, CodeHS. I sought this out. I've been all over the country, Arizona, Seattle, New Orleans, and it's all paid for because everyone and their dog is throwing money at this program. They want this to happen. If you just hop on Google and search computer science summer workshop, I've had flights paid for, hotels paid for. One gave me a $500 stipend just to blow while I was there. Like that was a fun time. That was great. That was Phoenix. That was really good. Go participate. I became CTE certified. I incorporated computer science into my other class at every turn. I made it unavoidable to talk about. Okay. I would, when they have downtime, they're working on a worksheet, they're doing, maybe catching up on stuff. I would sit at my desk. I'd fiddle with my little drone. I wouldn't say a word. And eventually a kid would look over and look away, do his work, and look back over and like, Foley, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, this is my drawing. It's like, you have a drone? I'm like, here, like this is made for I got the one made for little kids. I'm like, you can't bust it. Check it out. Do what you want. Go explore. Okay. Same with, we got microbits, all on Donors Choose. Donors Choose is great for wanting to fund things. I got a 3D printer. I had kids like, what is that? Like, we've heard of it. What is it? What are you making? I'm like, oh, Death Star. We made a Death Star. Whoa, Death Star, like that's cool. And what happened was the students started talking to the principal and their parents. And again, the community is what drove this forward. I was given every reason in the book. Staffing, which is true, small school. I was a core English teacher. I had 7 full periods every day of English, required course. You can't get away from it. Let's see. Believe it or not, in White River with 400 people, it's not easy to recruit people that want to come here. But I also knew like they're not going to get someone to fill my shoes. So let's push a little bit. Okay, let's push. Let's see. This last year, we had no replacements for both science teachers. And in that same year, the governor made computer science an applicable credit to graduate. And that was the best thing that ever happened because all of a sudden we have no science classes. These kids need to graduate. Foley, you're up. It's your time. You've been talking about 5 years. You have been annoying me. You got your class. It's required. Yes. Yeah, that's great. So what can you do? That's what I did. What can you do? So you got to be intentional about learning the history and culture of the kids at your school. And there might be 10 different cultures that you got to learn. I have found in every Native community, and this is one of those things that is under the umbrella. Don't be afraid to ask hard questions. They want to share. They want to teach you. They want more people to know. You got to be in it for the long haul. You've got to be in it for the long haul. Okay. Like I said, it's going to be generational. It's going to take 50 years. If you give up on it, again, no one else is going to want to come here. So you got to do it. And then you got to recruit another teacher. You talk to you get buy-in from those students. Go be a teacher, go do this, go get your computer science degree. They're going to come back. Like we talked, they're going to come back. And then you have someone else to take over and they'll do the same thing. It's the cycle. Okay. Demand technology, demand it. I know budgets are tight. There are grants, there are programs. especially with low income people. You can help with computers. You can help with internet. You need to do the legwork, and it is time consuming. Be the squeaky wheel. Make it so they cannot ignore you. Okay. So a few more things you can do. I'm a strong proponent of this. Advocate to your school to have a one-to-one system so they have access. So what I think has happened the last 10 years or so, kids have cell phones. Every kid has like second graders, first graders have cell phones. And people are convinced that because you can push buttons and make something happen, you must know computers. We are learning now that I've had students that didn't know how to open email. They didn't know how to save a document. They could play games. They didn't know the very basic. They didn't know how to turn on a computer, a laptop. Okay, so you gotta learn when you have to start from the beginning. Okay, find outside seminars, camps, trainings for you and your students. Last year, we sent like 5 boys to this online coding computer gaming camp. They said it was the best time of their lives. Absolute best time. They said we were up till 3 a.m. every single day gaming. We met all these people. We got to sleep till 11 because the camp knew they were going to be up till 3 a.m. playing. So this camp really tailored it to them. And gosh, they just learned so much and they found a community. And you need to dedicate yourself. I think I already said that. So dedicate yourself to learning computer science. I'm going to try to rush. We are so close. I know I'm over. Thank you, CodeHS. What this program has done is it has given me flexibility. If something's not working because a class is not meshing, get rid of it. Go to another thing. I've had a class that loves the 3D printer. It's all they want to do. I had a class that hated 3D printing. Put them in front of Java, long form coding. Leave them alone. Be quiet. Red Bull, Red Vines, they're good. They are really good. So that flexibility really plays into the flexibility and the fluidness of the culture. Yeah, you also need to understand that this absenteeism, you got to be flexible. I have kids that meet a week at a time. Instead of getting upset, accept that their parents have to have them out on the ranch. They have to brand cattle. Maybe they have to stay home and watch their 5 siblings. You have got to be as flexible as their culture is. You have to change your culture to meet them. And differentiation. If you have that student that doesn't know how to turn on their computer, go back. Go back to some of these middle school. Go have them do hour of code. Go have them do block coding. That's okay. Your other students that have been coding since they were in middle school because they love it, go put them in the AP course. They can truck along. Like if they know it, they don't need you. You're there, but they don't need you. Okay, I'm trying to fly. Oh, last slide. Perfect. So I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to CodeHS. Thank you for listening. This was on my bucket list. I mean, going to a TED Talk is on my bucket list, but this was right here. Like I haven't slept in days. I was so nervous. I hope I shed a little light on the problems of the low income, rural, Native American students. Again, there are 400,000 computer science jobs as we speak. The unemployment rate on the reservation is twice as high as the rest of the company. There's a problem. There's a solution. We just have to be willing to do the work. Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Tammie, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and post.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Next sessions here in just a moment. In room 3, we have Anayo and our Inspire Fellows. I am truly so excited. But here are our other sessions as well. We've got about 5 minutes before we get started with those next sessions. So I appreciate everyone that was here with us this afternoon. Again, stretch your legs a little bit and we'll see you in 5 minutes for session 3.
Thank you.